I know everybody wants to talk offense. Why wouldn't you? You've got two of the best in the game in Georgia and TCU, and both of them led by a quarterback that was a bona fide Heisman Trophy contender. But actually wanted to talk defense in this one, and specifically the TCU defense, because there was a handful of plays in their upset victory over the Michigan Wolverines that made me sit back, scratch the old beard, and think to myself, maybe defensively, this team can create some opportunities against Georgia that nobody sees coming, and perhaps a second upset might be possible for the TCU Horned Frogs. Why do I feel that way? Let's take a look in this Rob Brown breakdown. It is 4th and goal to go from the 2-yard line, and Michigan is going to have to try something special. Do they run up the gut? Quick slant to the inside, maybe a little 1v1 post out to the outside? No. Jim Harbaugh dials up something a little fancy. They go with the Michigan version of the Philly special, and ladies and gentlemen, it fell apart, and it fell apart quickly, and I am going to show you why. First, let's just take a look at the formations that both teams have started in. Let's start on the offensive side of the football. Michigan is going with a spread set. They've got 2 receivers to the top of the formation, 2 receivers on the bottom of the formation with much tighter splits to the offensive tackle. They've also thrown 1 running back into the backfield along with McCarthy. They are doing this for a couple of reasons. Number one, obviously, the play itself needs a receiver crossing the formation, but they sent a second receiver up there to utilize him as part of the play. I'll show you that here in just a moment. TCU traditionally runs a 3-3 defense. That is to say, they have 3 down linemen and they have 3 linebackers with an extra cornerback that they can move anywhere onto the field that they think they might need help in stopping the offense. And they have done that here to some degree. You'll see the 3 down linemen, but you'll also see a modified setup with 2 edge rushers on the top and bottom of the formation. On the near side, you've got a linebacker who's walked up. On the far side, a defensive end that has walked up. These 2 players are going to become critical and have to have excellent discipline to maintain their role. I'll tell you what that is here in just a moment. You're also going to see the 2 linebackers at the second level, and it's going to create the look that everybody, every skill player for the Wolverines is man up against the defensive back. 2 defensive backs against 2 wide receivers at the top of the formation, 2 defensive backs against 2 wide receivers to the near side of the formation. And the expectation would be that one of those linebackers is responsible for the running back as well. But it doesn't work out that way for Michigan. Let's take a look why. Here's the first step towards that Philly special. J.J. McCarthy is going to send the wide receiver up on the top of your screen into motion. He's going to start down the line and then tail off back into the backfield, obviously, where he would take the pitch from the quarterback. What you're going to see at the top of the screen is that it is not a man-to-man from TCU's defense. They were disguising it that way, but it's actually a zone. How do we know that? The receiver that was lined up against the outside wide receiver, that is the one that went in motion. He is going to follow until he's lined up with the new outside wide receiver. That's the wide receiver at the top of the screen. The defensive back that was initially lined up against that inside, now outside wide receiver, he is going to step laterally in and now become the last man to the outside of the defensive court. When the wide receiver goes in motion and crosses underneath the tight end into the backfield, that's when you're going to see the defense start to adjust in that direction. The goal, obviously, is to get the entire defense to flow that way, and I'll show you what that setup is supposed to have looked like for Michigan now. This was the ultimate goal of the play that Michigan ran. You see the yellow arrows there in the middle of the field? That's the direction that Michigan wanted to see TCU's defense go. You see the defensive end up top. They were hoping that by bringing a man in motion and by pitching the ball that way, that instead of coming up the field and maintaining contain, he would bite on the run to the far side, get in behind the offensive line, and run flat down the line towards the camera, towards us. They do that, Much easier to get the ball across his face. They were also hoping that the two linebackers and the outside cornerback would all scrape off the offensive line, scrape off the blocks up top, attack at the line of scrimmage where they thought the ball was going to go if it was a pitch run initially. And that means that all of the pursuit angles that would shut down this play to the far side, if the pass wasn't available, all of those potential pursuing defenders are now trapped on the near side of the field. And worst case scenario, you've got a one-on-one opportunity for the wide receiver with the ball, if the pass option isn't there, to break an open field tackle and get into the end zone. Unfortunately for the Wolverines, that ain't what happened. This is what happened. And remember back in that first part where I told you about the outside edge rushers and how important they were going to be? They had to stay disciplined and play their role for this defense to work. Look at exactly what happened. The cornerback up top, the linebacker on the bottom, maintained contain on the edge. Both stepped up the field, and they sat down to make sure the ball didn't cross their face. This takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of discipline. If you're that near side edge rusher, you've got to trust that your linebackers are coming so that if that ball carrier, when you're looking up the field, cuts up inside of you, you know someone is going to step into that hole and make that tackle. You are corralling them towards where the majority of your defense is. If you're on the far side of the ball, you have to ignore your instinct to chase after the ball down the line of scrimmage and maintain contain in case there is some sort of trickeration, like a Philly special. Exactly what happened. If the outside edge rusher was to step in, there's an opportunity. If the far side edge rusher, and he is the ultimate key to this play, would have chased the football down the line, as a lot of defensive ends that are undisciplined would do, then that Philly special's running past his face to the outside. And the worst case scenario is the second ball carrier now just has to beat one open field tackle in order to score. Or the cornerback that's guarding against the throw to McCarthy has got to step up, and an open throw to the corner of the end zone is right there. But he didn't. He stepped up the field. He maintained his lane. He kept contained. And let's take a look at what happened next. And that comes into play here. Why? Because this is all about pursuit angles. Look at what we have here on the football field. The defensive outside rusher on the top part, he saw the contain. He made sure that he does not let the wide receiver going back against the flow get across his face. Takes a good angle, chases him down to the numbers, creates a situation where he's got an opportunity to make an open field tackle for a loss. But that is not all. The cornerback does not attack. Instead, he steps up, sees the quarterback coming out on a route, is able to get man-to-man. Not a lot of quarterbacks you're going to throw 1v1 versus a national championship team caliber defensive back. So that option is off the table. And go all the way back to the first frame. Remember the one wide receiver that they left split out? They are going to run him on a post across the back of the end zone towards the goalpost. Well, because that top cornerback trusted his guy underneath to maintain that spot, he is able to put an arm on him, ride him across the back of the end zone. There is no opportunity to throw the ball back across the field. The ball carrier is now hemmed in. The quarterback has been taken away. The route across the back of the end zone has been taken away, and now he is staring down the barrel of a cornerback who maintained contain, has him in a tough spot, and there is nowhere else to go. Because now look at the line of scrimmage, and what do you see? You see that linebacking core. You see that defensive line. Tremendous pursuit angles. They flatten out. They run down the line of scrimmage to the sideline. So even if he does beat that one-on-one open field tackle and he's able to turn that corner, ladies and gentlemen, there's nowhere else to go. And here's the result of that. This is what happened when the second ball carrier got to the edge. You'll see that he did break the open field tackle, and that's the only opportunity he had at that point. Why? Because now he's got to turn up the field. The quarterback has been taken away as a throw option. The route across the back of the end zone, back across his body, has been taken away. That means he has to run to try to get to the goal line. Remember, this is fourth down, but look up the field, and what do you see? The quarterback is locked up. You've got the defensive lineman who is now flattened out to the sideline. Going to have a hard time getting past that big boy because waiting behind him, look at that other black arrow on the left side of your screen. That represents not one, but both linebackers who flowed with the football, saw it cross back, run across the goal line. There are now 3 TCU players that are on their way to shut down the run angle that Michigan was trying to create if the quarterback pass was unavailable. And the final result looked like this. And that, ladies and gentlemen, on your screen right now, that is the result of a perfectly disciplined football play from the defensive team. Everything went right. The edge rusher maintained contain. The linebackers did not get fooled by the misdirection, took good pursuit. The defensive line flattened out and took a pursuit angle, not to where the ball was, but where the ball might have gone if somebody else didn't do their job. The cornerbacks played their routes perfectly. There was nowhere to throw the ball. And now the Michigan wide receiver has broken an open field tackle only to find 5 white shirts standing between him and the end zone. That only works if you are perfectly disciplined defensively. And here's why that matters. It matters because if TCU is going to win this game, a game they enter as a 12.5-point underdog, despite the upset win over Michigan, if they're going to beat the Georgia Bulldogs, they're going to have a few things. They are going to have a better game out of Max Duggan. They are going to have an offense that steps up and picks up that slack if their Heisman caliber quarterback is overwhelmed by the Georgia defense. But number 3, and I think most importantly, they are going to need to be perfectly disciplined on defense. And that is why I wanted to show you that play in particular. Because when Michigan threw the trickiest of trickerations at the TCU Horned Frog defense, they played it perfectly. Perfect defensive discipline, perfect defensive execution. They made Michigan look foolish at a critical part of the game. They kept Michigan out of the end zone. They flipped the field. They were able to get the pick 6 on the next Michigan possession, and the game started on a very good foot for the TCU Horned Frogs, and it was because they are disciplined. Exotic looks out of the 3-3, show things to Stetson Bennett that he hasn't seen out of anybody else in the SEC, move guys around the field, put them in places he's not used to, and when they get there, do your job, do it well. TCU did that against the Michigan Wolverines. They won the football game. They will have to do it again if they want to beat the Georgia Bulldogs. My name is Rob Brown. If you have enjoyed this, do me a favor, follow me across all the social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. And if you'd like to listen to the show, feel free to check that out as well. Weekdays from 9 to noon Eastern for free on the Odyssey app, AUDACY, or check us out online at thefanupstate.com. I'm Rob Brown. This was a Rob Brown Breakdown. We'll see you next time.